see the apocalyptic scenes after wildfire torches Hawaii. Folks, welcome to the channel and checking on the latest events regarding the fires in Hawaii. Let's see this and comment later.
Bands of flames and smoke that spread horrifically fast, arriving without warning, giving people little or no time to evacuate. Those are the consistent, terrifying accounts of victims and witnesses on Maui.
We saw the smoke start about a block away from our house, and this was maybe 3:30, 4 o'clock. By 5:30, our house was gone. Everything that we had ever known was gone.
Claire Kent says she also got out of her house just in time.
It's like as soon as we were out the door, it was like, holy cow. Within an hour, the flames had moved all the way down to the end of like the neighborhood.
Kent and other residents of the town of Lahaina and the area surrounding it giving harrowing accounts of what they saw and providing images to match them.
Oh my gosh, look at the harbor.
Man.
This video of a building violently burning was taken by Alan Dicker, who says at least one of his houses caught on fire. He says this is a historic area of Front Street, where he has a gallery.
I started taking a video of it because I was amazed that there were no fire trucks there. And then as I turned and looked down Front Street exploded in flame.
Motorist Marjorie St. Clair narrated as she drove through the flames in Lahaina.
When it is this,
like Lahaina is on fire.
yeah, no shit, lady. When it's this widespread, there's no firemen coming to do anything. You just evacuate people out of their way. There's always limits to what you can do against nature, right? When nature gets pissed, it's like, oh, where are the firemen if there's a tsunami hitting our way? You just get out of the way. You just don't do much in terms of stopping. Now, there are things you can do so as to protect a certain area, reduce the likeliness of, and yes, even to some incredible extents, if you clear the vegetation around your house, if you make sure there's no flammable materials that can start a fire within the vicinity of the house or very close to it, keeping everything very clean so as to avoid those little blazes and little burning debris from starting fires. There is cases of houses that have been spared even though everything around them for miles had burned down. So there are things you can do. Just don't give up on the idea of being prepared. That's what we actually do here. That's what I encourage here in the channel. But there's only so much you can do, especially when it's widespread, when it's generalized, and it's a number of miles of a wall of fire moving towards you because of the wind. You just get the hell out of there. That's basically what you have to do.
Oh my God.
Jeff Melichar said he was told his house was gone after he evacuated. He took this video of what he said was a Salvation Army facility in flames.
Yeah.
Claire Kent, who works on a boat, sent us these
about.
pictures of fire in the distance and what appear to be smoke and flames on the water. She said the Coast Guard and private boaters had to scramble to rescue people from the ocean.
They were sending boats from Mount Laia to help flush people out of the water because they had just run down.
They jumped into the water. Man.
To get away from the fire.
Kent says it's not just the victims who are in shock. Rescuers also traumatized.
My friend got out of his car and he was covered in head to toe in ash. His eyes were black, his mouth was black, and he had gone back and was helping getting people out.
Respirators.
He had a car full of old people, and he was just like, the look on his face, I mean, it was terror.
Claire Kent and other survivors say those apocalyptic scenes were made even worse by the lack of communication. They said because power was knocked out and cell service was terrible, they couldn't see news reports or get any communication ahead of time that the fires were spreading. She says at one point, quote, there were guys on bicycles just screaming at people to leave.
Yeah, that's basically what you have to do. There's not a whole lot you can do other than that. When it gets to that point, when death toll, going up a lot, it is expected, and there's hundreds of people missing, I believe. So what you have here is one of these events in where you just get out of the way of nature, because it will eat you alive. Now again, it's very interesting to, especially if you live in a wooded area, having a good amount of clearance around it. It's not as nice, doesn't look as good. We all like having all that vegetation around us, but if this is a risk that you're considering, then yeah, having a good amount of clearance can make the difference between your house burning to the ground or being spared. And even stuff like, where is it you keep the firewood? Do you keep it like in a little postal card right next to the front door? Well, that is kind of what you don't want. You want something that's away from the main building. And then what they said there in terms of communication, yes, nothing is working. Cell towers have probably burned. There's no way other than having your ham radio, having your little Baofeng radio, and having people to communicate with. It can make a big difference. In terms of the ability to breathe when air is compromised to this extent, respirators. It will not replace the lack of oxygen, but when there is dust and ash in the air, it makes a big difference being able to keep your face clear and be able to breathe in without having all of that going inside you. And what they were saying there about the people literally jumping into the water because everything is on fire. The heat, I mean, I've been fortunate enough never to be involved in this, but I did, of course, more than enough research. The accounts are that the heat is overwhelming. People jump out of burning buildings not because they just give up. They just jump out of burning buildings because they're being roasted. They're being cooked alive. The heat is terrible. And if you ever did any kind of grilling or barbecue, just having that little sensation close to your hand or close to your face, imagine what it's like to be in something like this. It must be terrible. Final thoughts here about the plans you do in terms of where is it that you live? What contingency plans do you have? Oh, the famous, I'm already in my bug out location. That is not a plan. That is not serious preparedness. Anyone that is serious about the stuff that we do here on the channel, real survival preparedness, you always have a contingency plan. You always have a plan B in case plan A instead, your main place of residence is compromised. You have to go somewhere else. And as I described in this book, which I always recommend, 3 survival skills, and for the economic aspect, as always, surviving the economic collapse. Here, I explain that you want to have alternatives within your same town, within the same community, in case something is local. Your house burned down, not the entire island. Your house burned down. So you have to go on with your life. You have to go show up to work. You have to take the kids to school. It is a personal disaster. For you, it is terrible, but you don't have to leave the neighborhood even. In fact, it would be ideal if you can stay within the same radius, the same few blocks that you've always been living in. That would be your main bug out evacuation point. That would be your main plan. Now, if you have to leave the city, if you have to leave the state, if you have to leave the country, if you have to leave the island. For a period of time, I lived in an island, and I can tell you, the island involves its own challenges. There's a few advantages that having, living in an island has in terms of potential disasters and so on. I think it's more the case that it has more cons than pros, especially when something like this happens, when there's a widespread disaster that affects pretty much most of the island, and this is just one of the possible cases. You want to have a way out of there, and it could be a boat, it could be whatever, but you are always you're stuck in the island. You have to find your way out of there. If you're in mainland, then that's different. In mainland, you can just keep on moving, and you have the entire continent at your disposal, right? If you're in the United States, continental U.S., you can go to Canada. Oh, I would never go. Okay, you never go there. I would go to Mexico. I'd never go to Okay, fine. But if you have to, you have those options. In an island, the thing you're thinking of is, I'm surrounded by water. If I don't have a way of getting myself out of here, I'm done. That is the not so great aspect of living in an island. And especially in a larger one, Hawaii, it's not exactly small, but some of these can be, pretty small to the point where you can be cornered. And keep in mind, many of these are strongly linked to volcanic activity. Just, if you think this is fun, imagine what it would be like if there's a serious eruption and people have to get themselves out of there in a hurry too. So, little things to consider, guys. This is what preparedness is all about. Learning from what happens to other people, making our own plans, and being as well prepared as we possibly can. Folks, see you on our next video. Take care.